closer. What is this? What is that? Hey, welcome to November. It's time to do my October reading wrap up. I read 9 books this month. I did have a pretty good reading month, so let's just get talking about them. First book I read in the month of October was Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Chestnut Spring series. This follows Cade and Willa, which I have a reading vlog of this, but after I read Flawless, I wanted a book on Willa so bad, and I was hoping she would be a character in one of these books. So before I started this, I was like flipping through and looking at the beginning of the chapters, and I saw Willa's name and my jaw literally dropped. I was so excited. Anyway, this follows Cade and Willa. Cade is a rancher and Willa is living back in the city, and she works at a bar, I believe, if I remember that correctly. But Willa's just a super cool chick that everybody loves, and she's super fun. And then Cade is the oldest Eaton brother, and he's just minding his own business on the ranch, doing ranch things. He is a single dad to Luke, so over the summer he's gonna need somebody to watch his son, which I believe Luke is 5 or 6, I want to say. Before Luke goes back to school, he just needs somebody to be there to watch him. So Summer from the first book tries to convince Willa to be the nanny of Luke. She ends up going and living at their house, and she watches Luke every day, and they have such a sweet relationship. It's so sweet to read about. I am one of the people who don't really like kids in books, but I swear some authors just do it so good to where you fall in love with a child. And yeah, I mean, I don't really want to deal with kids, but Luke is such a cutie and I really liked him. I did give this book a 4.25 stars, which honestly now I probably would give it like a 4.5. I think anywhere between 4 and 5 stars. I did like Flawless more. I just love Chestnut Springs, and I know that every book in this series is going to be a very highly rated book, and I think this is my favorite romance series of all time. I already know it's going to be. So if you have not started the series yet, please do. It is so worth it, and I hope that it'll be a series that you enjoy because I'm loving it so far. Next up, I read What Happens After Midnight by K.L. Walther. I did read The Summer of Broken Rules by her a few months ago, I want to say, or a couple months ago. I did like that book. I was just iffy about it. It was okay. It was like a nice lighthearted fun read, which is the same with this one. This follows Lily. She is in her senior year. She's at a boarding school, and every year there is a jester in the senior class, and they have to pull off the senior prank. The only person that knows who the jester is the previous jester from the other senior class. One day Lily gets an email asking if she's down to do the senior prank, and it's from the jester. She has to reply with her answer, so obviously she says yes, and then they meet at midnight. There's like a handful of people there, and they're ready to pull off the senior prank, but she realizes that the jester is her ex-boyfriend, so there's a little awkwardness going on there. I gave this book a 2 star though. I think I have the same feeling with The Summer of Broken Rules, where I just felt like so much of this was very dramatic, and a lot of the events that happened in this book just were almost too dramatic. Like, I like drama in my books and I like a lot of adventure, but it was to the point where it was like, all right, like these things are getting way out of hand. Like, this isn't happening. And then the other thing, when there is a couple and they've broken up in the past, I always expect there to be very good reason that they had broken up. In this book, not at all. It was not a good reason at all, so I just did not like that either. I really wanted to like this one because it was very adventurous and it was fun, but it was just a little too cheesy and dramatic for me. Alright, moving on, I read Addicted for Now by Kristen Becker Ritchie. This is the 3rd book in the Addicted Calloway Sisters series, and this is still following Lillian Lowe's story. I'm not going to talk much on this though because it is the 3rd book and I can't really say anything this far into a series without spoiling the previous books. I will say that this did feel pretty repetitious to me with Lillian Lowe, which makes sense because they have addictions and obviously you deal with that 24/7. So it was a little conflicting, but I do feel like this book could have been a lot shorter, and there was also like a mystery kind of subplot in here that didn't get focused on it as much as it needed to be, and I was just hoping for more of that because it really picked up the story. But yeah, the first like half of this book was pretty slow to me, and then action started happening, but it was just, I don't know, it wasn't really focused on. This one just felt a little flat to me, so I did get this 2.5 stars. But the next book is starting the Calloway Sisters portion of the series, so I'm excited to get into that. Next, I started another series, which is The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. This is the 1st book in the Remnant Chronicles, which is a trilogy, and then that trilogy comes before Dance of Thieves and Vow of Thieves, which I feel like is more popular than this one. But it said you don't have to read this trilogy before you read those 2 books, but it will just help you get info on the world and the characters and the magic, I guess. There wasn't a lot of magic in this though, which kind of put me off because it is a fantasy, so I wanted some magic. There is talk of magic in this, but it isn't really touched on any more than that. So I would have liked to seen a little more, but being the 1st book in a series, this was just kind of a more, I don't want to say relaxed because obviously like things go down in this book, but For a fantasy, I feel like this setting up the rest of the books was a more laid back plot line than what you could have gotten in a fantasy book. I still did enjoy this though. I did give this a 3 stars. So this is about our Princess Leah. She is the Princess of Morgan. She's being set up to marry this prince who she does not want to marry him at all. So she goes with her best friend to this little town. They escape. Then at that point, there is an assassin who is hired to kill her, and then there is the prince who is looking for her, which is the prince that she was supposed to marry, and she does not know who this prince was at all. So they end up finding her and meeting up with them, but she obviously doesn't know that that's their role and that's why they're there. And they don't really know that either, but they slowly figure out like, okay, she's the princess, we got to figure out what's going to happen. And then they don't know, the assassin and the prince don't know that they're the assassin or the prince. So they don't know what their intentions are. And I'm honestly surprised that the 3 of them like stayed away from each other as long as they did, and they didn't do what they needed to do. So I am excited to read the next books in this trilogy. I think it is going to be very interesting, and I did enjoy it. I just think it lacked in the magic really, and I think there could have been more going on, but it wasn't a bad book and I do recommend this. Next, I did just do a reading vlog on this. This is The Petting Zoo by Jim Carroll. I did a reading vlog on this in another book that I will talk about shortly. So I'm only going to talk about this a little bit. This follows Billy. He's an artist and he lives in New York. The whole concept of this book is that he goes into this museum, the Museum of Modern Art, and he sees this painting by this artist. It does something to him. It like freaks him out a little bit and makes him start hallucinating. He's like running away from it. Kind of goes a little crazy. So he ends up in the hospital and they just have to like make sure that he's okay because someone called the cops on him saying like this dude's threatening people. But basically the whole book you're just going to Billy's past and finding out, well, you're not really finding anything out I guess, but you're just getting excerpts from his past, and then it's back in the present and you're just getting more of his life in present time, which nothing seemed to really add to a story or a plot. It was just hard to read because I couldn't connect with Billy at all either, or any of the other characters. So if I'm not connected to a character, I don't really care to read about them. That was pretty much it with this book. I gave this a 1 star. I wanted to DNF it, but I just stuck through because I did a reading vlog on it. Next, I read Powerless, also by Elsie Silver. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Springs series, and this is my favorite so far. I know that a lot of people say either Powerless or Reckless is their favorite in that series. I think it's going to be this one. So this follows Jasper and Sloane. Jasper is a hockey player, and he is basically the Eaton's brother. He's not related to them at all, but they took him in when he was younger because he had a lot of family issues. So he's been living with them, is very close with them. And then Sloane is a ballerina. She lives in the city, but she is the Eaton's cousin. And her dad is setting her up with this rich man type of dude who only cares about his job and money and has no personality, which, ew. Sloane obviously does not want to be marrying this man. Her wedding happens. She finds out something very bad about the guy she is supposed to be marrying, so she runs away, and Jasper is there obviously because they were childhood friends. They were very close, and they've always kind of had like this secret crush on each other, but have just never admitted it as they got older. They kind of knew when they were younger, but it was never talked on with each other. They run away. They end up going back to Chestnut Springs, and some other event happens, and someone on the farm has to drive a couple hours to do something for this other ranch. So Jasper volunteers because he's like stressed out right now with what's happening. So he goes, and then Sloane's like, well, I don't have anything to do, so I'm coming with you. So they go on this little road trip, and she goes to like his hockey games and everything, and it's just so, it's so perfect. It's chef's kiss. I love them, and I love this book, and 5 stars. Easy. I finally read A Little Life. This was quite a bit. It didn't take me as long to get through as I thought it would. I think it was like exactly a week. This just follows mainly our main character Jude, but then it also talks about 3 other of his friends. They were all roommates in college, and it literally just goes through their entire life and past and present. So I also read this in my reading vlog because it was like my intimidating read. So this and The Petting Zoo had pretty much the same concept where you're just learning about a character's life, past and present. This one just did it for me so much more, and I really enjoyed this. I gave this book a 4 stars. It was definitely a book that I had to be patient with and completely focus on. I couldn't just sit down and have like a fun quick read, you know. This is deeper than that, but I did really enjoy this and definitely made me think about a lot of things. But yeah, we're just following Jude and his whole trauma with his past and his whole entire life. He goes through a ton. That man really deals with it. He really does, and I feel so bad for him. But you end up growing such strong connections to these characters, and you end up really liking them a lot. I feel like some people who read this book though can probably get really frustrated with the characters and not like this book, but for me, I understand understood, not saying that if you don't like the characters you don't understand, but just in a sense of what Jude was going through, if you're very understanding of it and you don't get frustrated with some of the things that are happening and his thought process. But I do think this is a book that you can be years in the future and look back on and just think about. So I do recommend this if you have been wanting to read this. Take your time. Don't stress out about this book because it's quite a bit. Alright, and then I read The Housemaid's Secret by Freida McFadden. This follows The Housemaid, which this is really, you can read this as a standalone. You don't have to read The Housemaid. This follows Millie, which I didn't like Millie in the first book. I thought she was kind of dumb. She just made such stupid decisions, and I did not like her in this book either. She made even worse, not like, I don't know. Dudes, I don't know. I just am so frustrated with this woman. I can't. The things that she says, I have quotes because I was like marking them on Goodreads. So she's dating this dude and she does work as like a housemaid. She goes and cleans people's houses and everything. So she gets hired by like this super rich man and he lives in this penthouse and he's married to this girl, but she's like stuck in, not stuck, but she just stays in this room and he's like, she's very ill. Like she's not gonna come out, don't talk to her, leave her alone. Okay, sketchy, right? Yeah. So you know, if you were in that situation, not even with that, but like the beginning of this book, there's just so many things that happen where it's like, girl, why are you continuing with what you're doing when you have no, like, she constantly says, I don't feel good about this, or like, I don't have a good feeling about this, but that she doesn't stop herself. Like, listen to your gut. Why would you not listen to your gut? Anyway, I have to share these real quick. The one time, so literally talking about her boyfriend, she like doesn't tell him anything on her past because she has a very sketchy past, which you find that out as you read the book. I don't want to spoil it though. But she's like, it's a relief I don't have to tell him everything, but sometimes I wish he would press me because I'm tired of keeping all these secrets from him. So tell him. Like, what? I can't. And then I was 6% into the book and I said Millie is the dumbest person ever. And then the end of the book, she was talking about this other dude that she like had a thing with. It literally says you should ... like find another girlfriend. I don't know why that bothered me so much, but it made me hate her even more. So I don't like Millie. And I don't even want to read the third book because she's so frustrating. Because there's so many, like, it's a mystery, so obviously she has to, it's a book, it's a mystery book. So she has to be there and she has to be going through these things and make those decisions. But it's also frustrating because why would you be making these decisions? There's no way that you're like, someone's constantly watching me and I don't feel good about this, but I'm just going to ignore that. So anyway, she's working at this penthouse and cleaning, her normal thing. She just always ends up with this couple that is super weird and sketchy. So that's basically the story, is just her dealing with her job and having to deal with people who are causing harm to other people. I give this a 2.5 stars because it's still a mystery, keeps you on edge, and it is fun to find out what happens and who's the reason behind everything. But I can't do it anymore. I can't do the main character. Lastly, I read Hawk by Jessie Hall. So this author also has a book called Kid, and I did read that book in August and it took me away. I say this all the time, but I love that book so much. I don't think it's for everybody. It's more of like a darker romance, which I'm surprised that I love that book so much, but just the connection between the two characters in that book and like the quotes in there, oh my god. It's perfect. That book technically follows this one because you're introduced to the character Kid in this book. I didn't know that this book even existed before that, so I did read Kid, and honestly I'm kind of happy that I did, because I think if I had gone into this one first I wouldn't have liked this one and then I wouldn't have read Kid. So it's weird that I read that one second, but I don't know. I think I needed to read that first because you get to know Hawk and Cole, who is the girl in here, so much in Kid, where I think I needed that. I needed to like them in that book to get the beginning of their story in this one and be okay with what's going on in this one, because this does have a trope that I don't like, a lot of people don't like, but she was in a very bad situation, so it did end up making sense in this book, but it's still iffy. So anyway, this does come before Kid. So this is about Nicole. She's dating this guy Patrick and she lives with him, and then all of a sudden she wakes up one morning and there's this dude and this girl in the other room getting it down, and she calls the cops because she's like, I don't know who these people are, they're in my house, please come get them out. And then the guy's freaking out. He's like, no, don't call the cops, like I'll explain. But she's obviously freaking out because she doesn't know who this is. They're just like in the other room doing things, you know, like obviously you're gonna freak out and call the cops. The cops come, and then her boyfriend gets back and he's like, oh, this is our new roommate. And she's like, what do you mean this is our new roommate? Like, you didn't tell me we're getting a new roommate. So he's like, well, he has to live here, like I'm just doing him a favor, like I owe him. That dude is Hawk, and he actually just recently got out of prison. So she's like, okay, why was this dude in prison? Like, what's going on? So you're trying to figure out that as the book goes on. And she works from home. Her boyfriend Patrick has this job that he's always at. He never really pays attention to her. He doesn't listen to her. Obviously, he didn't even ask her if it was okay if they got a roommate. So he's just making all these decisions in their relationship without her, and she's fed up. So Hawk is there. He's bad boy tattooed and hot. You know what goes down. So obviously she's at home. Hawk is working on getting a job because it's required after he's out of prison, but obviously he's at home most of the time, so they spend a lot of time together. Patrick's away. Boom, you know what happens. I did not enjoy this one as much as I did Kid though. I think this was more focused on the spicy stuff, but then Kid was also focused on spicy stuff, but that one just went so much deeper for me and this one didn't. So I did give this a 3 stars. I liked it just because I love Cole and Hawk so much, but yeah, it just didn't really do nearly what Kid did. So I'm just settling with a 3 on this one because obviously it wasn't bad, but it wasn't something that I'm completely in love with. So I'm settling in the middle, but that is it for my October reads. That is it for this wrap up. I'm stoked for November. I hope you guys are too. But let me know if you read any of these books and what you think about them. And let me know what your favorite book that you read in October was. That shall be all. I will see you in my next video, whatever that may be. See ya.